The Great Depression was a period of unprecedented economic hardship in the 1930s. It was marked by widespread unemployment, poverty, and social unrest. Understanding its causes is crucial to prevent future crises. This essay examines the economic, social, and political forces at play. The Great Depression was a global phenomenon affecting the United States, Europe, Asia, and beyond. The interconnected global markets meant economic downturns had worldwide ripple effects. The collapse of international trade and banking failures created a downward spiral. The Great Depression shaped political ideologies, social movements, and government policies. It highlighted the vulnerabilities of a globally interconnected economy. The lessons learned continue to inform economic policies and emphasize sustainable growth and social safety nets. The 1920s, often referred to as the Roaring Twenties, were a time of great economic prosperity in the United States. The country experienced rapid industrial growth, technological advancements, and a booming stock market. However, beneath this prosperity lay economic weaknesses that led to the Great Depression. Overexpansion of credit allowed unsustainable borrowing and investment. The stock market boom fueled risky investments, creating an economic bubble. Income inequality was rampant, with a small percentage holding most wealth. This disparity limited consumer spending, constraining the economy. The agricultural sector struggled with declining crop prices and debts. This crisis weakened the economy, setting the stage for turmoil ahead. The stock market crash of 1929, particularly Black Tuesday, marked the beginning of the Great Depression. Years of speculation and overvaluation in the stock market culminated in a catastrophic collapse, wiping out billions of dollars in wealth and shattering investor confidence. The crash had immediate and far-reaching consequences. Businesses, heavily invested in the stock market, saw their assets plummet in value, leading to bankruptcies and closures. The loss of confidence in the market made it difficult for businesses to raise capital for investment and expansion, further exacerbating the economic downturn. The stock market crash also had a profound psychological impact on the American public. The sudden loss of wealth and economic security created a climate of fear and uncertainty. Consumers and businesses alike became increasingly cautious, cutting back on spending and investment, which further contracted the economy. The crash exposed the underlying weaknesses of the American economy, particularly the over-reliance on credit and speculation. It also revealed the interconnectedness of global markets, as the collapse of the American stock market triggered a domino effect across the world. Section 4. Banking crisis, a domino effect of failures. The stock market crash of 1929 triggered a banking crisis that deepened the Great Depression. Banks, heavily invested in the stock market, began to fail at an alarming rate. As banks collapsed, depositors lost their savings and businesses lost access to credit. The banking crisis created a vicious cycle of economic decline. The loss of savings eroded consumer confidence and reduced spending. Businesses starved of credit, cut back on production, and laid off workers. This led to higher unemployment, further reducing consumer spending. The crisis highlighted the inadequacy of the regulatory framework. The lack of deposit insurance left depositors vulnerable to financial ruin. The Federal Reserve was slow to respond, exacerbating the situation. The banking crisis was a defining feature of the Great Depression. It demonstrated the crucial role of a stable banking system in a healthy economy. Section 5. The shrinking pocketbook reduced consumer spending. The Great Depression led to a sharp decline in consumer spending, which further aggravated the economic downturn. As unemployment soared and incomes dwindled, consumers were forced to cut back on their spending, leading to a decline in demand for goods and services. The decline in consumer spending had a ripple effect throughout the economy. Businesses, faced with declining sales, were forced to cut back on production, lay off workers, and reduce prices. This, in turn, further reduced consumer incomes and spending, creating a downward spiral of economic decline. The decline in consumer spending was exacerbated by the psychological impact of the Great Depression. The fear of unemployment, bank failures, and economic hardship led consumers to hoard cash and delay purchases, further suppressing demand. The decline in consumer spending was a significant factor in the severity and duration of the Great Depression. It highlighted the crucial role of consumer demand in a healthy economy and the devastating consequences of its collapse. Section 6. Trade wars and tariffs. Isolationism deepens the crisis. In response to the economic crisis, countries around the world retreated into protectionist policies, implementing trade barriers such as tariffs and quotas in an attempt to protect their domestic industries. However, these measures ultimately backfired, stifling international trade and exacerbating the global economic downturn. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, passed by the United States Congress, raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. This protectionist measure was intended to shield American industries from foreign competition, but it had the unintended consequence of triggering retaliatory tariffs from other countries. The resulting trade war choked off international trade as countries became increasingly isolated from one another. The decline in global trade further reduced demand for goods and services, deepening the economic crisis. The protectionist policies of the 1930s serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of economic isolationism. They demonstrate that international trade can be a powerful engine for economic growth and that protectionist measures can have unintended consequences, harming the very economies they are intended to protect. Section 7. A global storm intertwined factors of the Great Depression. The Great Depression was not caused by any single factor, but rather by a confluence of events and underlying economic weaknesses. The stock market crash of 1929, triggered by years of speculation and overvaluation, marked the beginning of the crisis, but it was the subsequent banking failures, reduced consumer spending and protectionist trade policies that turned a severe downturn into a global economic catastrophe. The interconnectedness of the global economy meant that the economic collapse in one country had ripple effects across the world. The decline in international trade, coupled with the widespread banking failures and reduced consumer spending, created a downward spiral that proved difficult to reverse. The Great Depression had a profound impact on societies worldwide, leading to mass unemployment, poverty, and social unrest. It also shaped political ideologies, government policies, and economic thinking for decades to come. The lessons learned from the Great Depression continue to inform economic policies today. The importance of financial regulation, social safety nets, and international